started the bar slightly over to Wesley's side. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think black is doing pretty well. It's not necessarily enough to win, but black is the only one who can claim the advantage. White, with his last move, offering a trade of rooks. If the rooks disappear from the board, they have done, black has snatched a pawn. Black is one pawn up now. It's not going to be easy to convert. There's not many pawns remaining. But knights against bishops, there's always going to be a chance. Yeah, I think this is the best position Wesley's had in a long time. 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬, how would you evaluate White's drawing chances, black's winning chances here? Because White's fighting for the draw.
I'm going to be honest here. I think black will win.
You think Wesley will win
I
this?
think he will win. I think the knight, if you look at all the pawns, they're on the right side of the board. And the knight can just run rings around, can run circles rather, than over the bishop. And it's just going to be very difficult to handle the pressure on the dark squares.
Yeah, that's the thing. When pawns are just on one side of the board, the knight tends to be much more versatile, much more agile and flexible. It will cover all kinds of squares. White's bishop, one-dimensional piece. Bishops are better when there's pawns on both sides, but that white bishop just staring against a well-fortified pawn, it's going to be staring against thin air, quite likely, for the rest of the game. You could imagine a scenario where Wesley just puts all his pawns on dark squares, puts his knight on an outpost, maybe dances around with the black king. Jan Nepomniatchi, meanwhile, I was about to say White's best strategy is to sit still, but he does not want to sit still. He pushes a pawn forward, kicking back the black knight from the centre of the board, but that feels committal. White's pawns now very far advanced, but that also makes them potentially weak. Nepomniatchi with a real battle now to save this game. I'm starting to really believe in black's winning chances as well. You've convinced me, 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬. As soon as black maybe just puts his corner pawn on a dark square, that pawn will never be a target anymore for White's pieces, and then black can start to relocate his knight.
Yeah. And how would you stop the white king potentially getting active? Because I can see a situation, OK, the pawn is on a dark square, a great safety-first approach. You've got to solidify the position first before you can think about making those little mini plans of improvement. So, OK, so I just see a situation where Nepomniatchi is simply going to pass. Just, you know, wait with the bishop, you know, just, you know, do anything. And here he goes, here comes the king. And so I do see something that, you know, if the black king tries to step forward, then the white king will make a beeline to the right. But, OK.
Yeah, so black just centralizing his knight. Very logical. He doesn't need to make progress yet.
Look at Nepo. Sorry, David, but just that is so funny. I think he's got a fly or something bothering him. Sorry, you were saying.
I mean, he's not just being bothered by Wesley, he's been bothered by the fly.
Yeah.
That's not ideal. And White's king did have to give way, did step back. He was maybe about to get checked by the black knight. So right now, as 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬 mentioned, ideally the next step is to bring the black king into the game, but it's not straightforward. There's no easy path. OK, he does step back with the black king.
OK, so I'm expecting the white king to step forward, and there is a threat that the white king will move diagonally to the right and start attacking pawns. So I'm expecting Wesley to perhaps give a check.
Bring his knight back, give a check, stop White's king advancing.
Oh, did he catch it in the end?
Oh, maybe. That's going to maybe give him some confidence.
Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The reflexes of a super grandmaster.
Yeah.
So right now, Wesley deciding whether he can continue moving his king forward. Maybe he can get away with that. Maybe black can bring the king towards the centre, but most likely just give a check with the black knight, force the white king back, and then fulfil your next step of the plan.
It looks like he's laughing at himself.
But it's
Oh, Wesley's laughing as well. Do you think he's watching the webcam? Oh, did you get it?
We could see it on the camera as well, the fly a moment ago. And Wesley may be smiling about his position. Maybe he can also see Nepomniatchi on the webcam.
When you're playing online, OK, so we actually see that Wesley did, in fact, check the king, and whilst the black king is going to start making a journey towards the centre of the board, I was just going to ask, when you're playing online matches, do you have a webcam, your webcam open where you can see your opponents?
My opponents. So in my most recent tournament, the Mr. Dodgy Invitational, OK, I just see a picture of myself. Oh, dear. I was distracted. So in the Mr. Dodgy Invitational last week, I didn't have my opponent's camera up. I actually played in the Mr. Dodgy Invitational 1 year ago, and I had it up, but I was very distracted by my opponent's face. This time I didn't, and maybe it brought me more luck. But this time, it's definitely a matter of taste. I know some people don't, some people do. Radjabov, Carlsen, they have admitted to watching their opponent's cameras. Meanwhile, there hasn't been too much action on the board. Black just bringing his knight to the side there. He will just relocate that knight. Bit of an odd choice. The White King unable to step forward. Yeah, I mean, just by Wesley smiling there, probably he has one eye on Nepomniatchi. I do think that Wesley, Radjabov, Carlsen, 3 of the semi-finalists at least, they have admitted in the past to watching their opponents. I'm not sure about Nepo, whether he does.
I must admit, I have never, ever watched many of my opponents when I've played online. I'm just distracted by the game. I'm so focused by that I don't even think about how my opponents are behaving. OK, so this was his idea. He intended to keep his knight and the pawns there far advanced, and this that now gives freedom for the Black King to march forward towards the centre.
Yeah, so Black's King is making its push towards the centre. I'm not sure I would have retreated the White King there as Nepo. I would have just kept my bishop, just kept repeating with my bishop, because there might have been ideas of the White King getting active, sacrificing a bishop later on, activating the White King. But right now, Nepo continue being distracted. At least his moves are easy, so he can worry about that fly for now. White is just waiting. White is just waiting. The onus, the burden is on Wesley So to actually come up with a winning plan. He's just trying to work out, wow, OK, that's committal. He puts his pawn on a light square. That means it's going to be a target for the opponent's bishop later on. But more importantly, his idea is to fix White pawn on that H-line. White has an isolated pawn there. The Black Knight is going to try and jump around to attack it. And maybe that's a very strong move. Often it's those counterintuitive moves that don't look logical, which actually do the most damage. It's ingrained in my brain. Don't put your pawns on the same colour as your opponent's bishop. But Wesley doesn't have such prejudices. Yeah,
I have to say, I'm not a big fan of this, actually. I would have liked to have done this, but perhaps at a later stage of the game. You know, first of all, centralise my king. Unless he must have a concrete idea.
Black King is being centralised, though.
Yeah, OK, so now finally the Black King is coming in, but
White's King is a bit stuck as well. White's King has to stay in touch with both of its pawns. It's not easy to do that. At the opportune moment, Black's Knight will jump forward, checking the White King and attacking some pawns. I mean, the evaluation bar doesn't seem to be too convinced by Wesley's plan, but I quite like it.
Yeah, well, you see, I thought of an idea where the Black King can come in, can snake its way so that's absolutely opposite the White King, and then once it's there, you can give a check with a knight, and you can go into a pawn endgame.
OK, how would you go into a...
Well, first of all, I'd put my king opposite the White King.
OK, but White will never take off the knight with his bishop.
Yeah,
ever.
OK, well, it's going to be happening, and we're going to see it now.
Yeah, so Black's King trying to find its way into White's position. That Black King is going to go on a real journey. It's going to even use maybe White's bottom rank just to find its way around. It's going to step down and then slide to the right. And it's not easy for Nepomniatchi to stop it. That's why bishops are so... I mean, they're just not ideal in these positions with pawns on one side of the board. The bishops don't control the dark squares. Black's King will start using those dark squares to try and enter the position. I really like what Wesley's been doing. And I don't think White has a defensive plan. White just has to continue sitting and waiting.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's worked beautifully, hasn't it? Absolutely. And it was very instructive, actually. I was quite critical about this knight going to such a strange square and the black pawn advancing forward. And again, breaking the rules, putting the pawns on light squares. But you're totally right. It is going to be very, very difficult for Nepomniatchi to even fight on the dark squares at all.
Yeah, can Black win a second pawn here?
Just improve the knight.
Black can bring his knight to attack White's corner pawn. He does that. That White pawn now on the H-line is doomed. It's about to drop off. White has to start counterattacking. White has to use his bishop maybe to attack some black pawns. But 2 pawns down, it doesn't look likely that Nepomniatchi will save this game. We saw that same thing in Radjabov against Carlsen. 2 pawns in an endgame is enough. 1 pawn, maybe you can save it, but not 2 pawns. And
I love his humor about it too. That fly.
Yeah, but he's in a tough position. Yeah. He needs to stop being bothered by that fly and
he might not be laughing when this game ends, unfortunately. Nepomniatchi.
Easier said than done, actually, not to be bothered by a fly. OK, I mean, is there any chance, for instance, moving the bishop all the way back to attack the black pawn.
All the way to the top of the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible, but...
But I realise I can see many good solutions for white, black.
For black.
For black. You know, primarily you can just capture the pawn.
Yeah, you can capture white's pawn. That comes with check. The white king will have to move, and either way, black's king will step back attacking one of white's pawns. Yeah, I mean, Wesley, he's about to go 2 pawns up. I think this is just game over already. I think Nepomniatchi, he can start to set some small traps, hope that Wesley doesn't protect some of the black pawns, but it looks quite straightforward now. Wesley does have fantastic endgame technique in general.
Okay, I have an idea. What about, so moving the bishop all the way up the board is not going to be great. But what about moving the bishop to attack the central pawn?
Shall we bring up the analysis board?
Yeah, let's have a look.
So we mentioned there's 2 moves. White can bring his bishop to the top of the board, eyeing up this pawn, with the bishop. Okay, he doesn't do that. He gives a check first, and that would have simply been met by black capturing a pawn, and wherever the king goes, if you go to the side, you get checked. If you go back, the black king drops back and attacks this pawn. Jovanka mentioned the other idea of going to this square, but instead he gives a check first, and maybe this was hoping that the black king gets carried away and goes into white's position, but if the king drops back, now if the white bishop comes up the board, simply you can step back with the black king. And this is actually going to transpose into exactly what we just showed, the white bishop now going up the board, but this doesn't change anything. Knight takes pawn is 2 pawn advantage now for black, and no matter where this king goes, it's in check. No matter where the king goes, it steps to the side. Black just step back with a knight, check, and 2 pawn advantage. You can push this pawn, you can just defend it with your knight.
Yeah.
2 pawns is too much. White's bishop cannot sacrifice itself for both of those pawns. The knight goes back, safety first approach.
And Nepomniatchi turns off the light, and I bet that has to do with the fly.
Yeah. What's that rhyme? I know him.
There was an old lady.
There was an old lady who swallowed a fly.
I don't know why, she swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die.
Ooh.
And then it carries on. She eats a spider.
Ooh. Wow.
And then a bird.
Hopefully there are no spiders or birds in Nepomniatchi's office.
It's a crazy rhyme. What can I say?
All right, well, it's dark where Nepomniatchi is sitting, and it's kind of dark, I guess, on the board as well for him. Is there any way he can save this?
No, I don't think he can. Actually, White's bishop might well get trapped. Maybe Wesley could step forward with a pawn here and prevent the white bishop from running away to safety. And White's bishop has not got a route back into its own half of the board. And that's what Wesley does. He cages that white bishop. That white bishop now unable to break out from the cage that the black pawns have created.
Can it be trapped? I mean, will we see some funny dancing going on?
Maybe the black king can start stepping back to harass that white bishop. It does look like that bishop is not going to survive for forever, and
no, it's
easy task for Wesley.
Actually, the bishop is just going to get trapped, isn't it?
Yeah.
The black king is simply going to walk its way back, trap the bishop on the edge of the board, and there we go. There we go. We're going to see it in action. That's it. You have to go. You have to go to the G line. This is the square, and the black king steps forward, and there you go. Back with the king.
Yep. The black knight just needs to step out of the way. I'm not sure actually. Wait.
Okay, can you?
Okay, the black knight, if it steps out of the way, that does create a threat of black's king stepping back and attacking white's bishop. So that would be the most natural move. Maybe Wesley's just making sure there are no traps. He does step back with the knight. Yeah, I mean, how is that white bishop surviving? There's no way. It's doomed. This is fatal now for Nepomniatchi. The white bishop about to be trapped. Does he resign? Yes, he does.
Wow. It's over. And actually a smile on Jan Nepomniatchi's face. I don't know what that is about, but he loses that final game, and that means Wesley So is the winner of the first semi-final match in this one after winning.